The first season of The Rings of Power proved that even well-versed Tolkien scholars couldn't predict everything the show had in store. Based on the new trailer, the second season seems to promise plenty of surprises, too. One of the biggest casting challenges for The Rings of Power was replacing the well-known face of Hugo Weaving, who played the immortal Elrond in both of Peter Jackson's two trilogies. The show struck gold with Robert Aramayo, whose performance in Season 1 is engrossing while relatively restrained, since Elrond functions as a diplomat who is still finding his way in the world. A more confident version of the character who will eventually found Rivendell and become known across Middle-earth for his unparalleled wisdom appears in the trailer. Part of that character evolution involves fighting. In the aftermath of forging the Rings of Power, Elrond will play a critical role as a military leader. In the book Unfinished Tales, it's explained that Sauron attacks the elves to claim the Rings of Power by force, saying, "When news of this reached Gil-galad, he sent out a force under Elrond half-elven. But Elrond had far to go, and Sauron turned north and made at once for Eregion." Elrond goes on to fight Sauron in Eregion, something that is hinted at in the teaser as we see multiple shots of the elf drawing his sword and leading charges in full armor. The Harfoot storyline in Season 1 ended with Nori and the Stranger following their noses off into the eastern regions of Middle-earth, toward the kingdom of Rhûn. This sets up a unique part of the Season 2 story, if only because Tolkien offered very little knowledge about the area of Rhûn. One rumor added fuel to the fire by suggesting that the pair of travelers may even meet another wizard who could help them fight Sauron in the east. When Rhûn comes up in Tolkien's writings, it is often in connection with hostile human tribes and nations under the influence of Sauron. They are connected to cultish activity, sorcery, and other magic-related elements. There are some mystic moments in the trailer, including a close-up of someone with bloody palms and a sandy temple, with some swirling magical fragments whirling through a doorway. It seems likely that we're already starting to get a glimpse into the secretive world of the East. Eregion is a thriving kingdom of elves that exclusively exists during the Second Age of Middle-earth. It is led by the skilled artisan Celebrimbor and is unique for its close connection with the nearby dwarves of Khazad-dûm. It's where the Rings of Power are forged too.
A tower. One that can host a forge. More powerful than any ever built.
When the Fellowship of the Ring passes through the region thousands of years later, there are nearly no signs of the immortal folk that once dwelt and prospered there. The Season 2 trailer gives a few hints of Celebrimbor and his people's impending doom. One scene is particularly important, as it appears to show a brief shot of Eregion with a hail of fiery siege engine missiles hurtling toward it. In another scene, a concerned Celebrimbor stares at a conflagration with what almost looks like a humanoid figure inside its flames. This may be a further scene showing Eregion's destruction. Much of the Rings of Power Season 1 was spent chasing a Sauron mystery box. The season finale finally answered the question of who the Dark Lord was. The mortal Halbrand was Sauron all along. The kind of obvious reveal was a bit off-putting, since Sauron never masquerades as a human in the books. The show's writers also opted to change the timeline by having the Dark Lord help make the Elven Rings of Power. In the books, Sauron helps the elves forge the other Rings of Power by appearing as an ethereal being named Anatar, Lord of Gifts. He seduces Celebrimbor and company with his knowledge before secretly making the One Ring to rule them all. In the Season 2 teaser, actor Charlie Vickers appears as a long-haired, elvish-looking individual. While nothing is officially confirmed, it appears that we may be getting a soft reboot of the Sauron mystery box by reintroducing the character as Anatar. This reinforces a rumor from June 2023 that Season 2 would have an angelic version of Sauron. A seaside cliff with lofty mountains in the distance appears in the trailer. One mountain rises above all of the others to a distinct peak, likely indicating that we're looking at the island nation of Númenor. In the forefront, a group of unnamed people gather in a meeting on a shelf of the cliff. If we really are on Númenor, it's important to remember context. Season 1 ended with the impending death of King Tar-Palantir. In the books, this event opens up the door for civil strife amongst the Númenorians. The conflict is primarily between a faction called the Faithful, who are still friends of the elves, and the Kingsmen, an anti-elf group looking to expand their conquests on the mainland. This gathering on the seashore could be a meeting of the Faithful as they seek to stay unified in the face of growing opposition from the Kingsmen. One of the wildest scenes in the Season 2 trailer is an underwater shot of an unidentified woman facing a gigantic sea monster. This is a little surprising since Tolkien doesn't really often mention sea creatures in his books. There are a couple of references, though. For instance, in The Fellowship of the Ring, at the Council of Elrond, Gandalf explains that the One Ring shouldn't be thrown into the sea because it isn't safe. He cryptically says, "There are many things in the deep waters." The classic Middle-earth map also shows drawings of sea monsters, including one with tentacles. In Tolkien's The Lost Road and other writings, he also categorizes a fish dragon or sea serpent type creature. The Rings of Power trailer seems to indicate that, like in Season 1, we're going to see more monstrous trouble from the deep in Season 2. But also, who is that floating woman alongside the monster? Is she one of the otherworldly Maiar like Sauron or Gandalf? If so, she could be the sea spirit Uinen, who already appeared as an Easter egg in the Rings of Power Season 1. But she helps calm the sea, not stir it up. As the trailer moves into its final moments, the words "darkness will bind them" flash across the screen. In the context of showcasing so many orcs, monsters, and Sauron himself, the line is fitting. It also has a deeper meaning as a reworked version of a line in Tolkien's classic ring verse.
One ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them.
There's a lot more to the ring verse than that, of course. Before getting to the One Ring, which was made in secret, it describes the 19 given to elves, men, and dwarves. The trailer's nod to the verse is more than a mere reference to gathering evil. It is the only indirect mention of the One Ring in the entire teaser, a ring that is likely to appear in the show before long. Arondir is a non-canon addition to Amazon Studios' Second Age show, which takes place in an era where named characters are scarce in the source material. Arondir is a rare on-screen depiction of a non-royal elf from the bunch, as actor Ismael Cruz Cordova put it. Arondir is loyal, smart, and fun to watch in battle, and in the teaser we see him flash some of that military prowess in a short scene where he does a flip off of an edifice and lands, bow drawn, ready to fire. The shot is quick, and with Arondir's acrobatics in the foreground, it's easy to miss the fact that he's standing in front of someone. The blurry figure in the background isn't clear, but they look an awful lot like Isildur. Played by Maxim Baldry, Isildur went missing in Season 1 after Mount Doom erupted. We saw that he survived, but we don't officially see if and how he got out of the fiery carnage. There's no doubt that Isildur will reappear at some point. Anyone who has watched the opening scene of Peter Jackson's The Fellowship of the Ring knows he eventually has to cut the ring from Sauron's hand and all that jazz. We know he'll be back, and there is even a close-up shot of his face later in the trailer. Based on this other scene, it looks like Arondir is going to play a role in his rescue, too. In one splashy scene, the teaser shows Pharazôn arrive at the Númenórean court, apparently via eagle. Incorporating the eagles into the Númenor storyline is a deep cut, as Tolkien specifically calls out the presence of these mighty birds on the island nation. While describing Númenor's geography in Unfinished Tales, Tolkien says 3 eagles live at the summit of the Meneltarma, the massive mountain at the center of the island, also called the Pillar of the Heavens. He also says the oversized birds live in other areas of the island, and that for thousands of years before the time of the Rings of Power, the eagles even have an airy right in the king's palace. The biggest oddity here is that Pharazôn seems to be the one riding the eagle. The aerial beasts are generally connected to the Wind and Sky Guardian Manwë, who is not popular with the King's men. The group Pharazôn leads.
She will remain, as always, a kingdom of men!
The Silmarillion adds that later on in the story, when Pharazôn and company have caused a lot of trouble, Manwë even sends storm clouds shaped like eagles as a warning. One of the more interesting character additions to the Rings of Power Season 1 was the orc leader Adar, played by Joseph Mawle from Game of Thrones. Adar isn't in the books, but Mawle made the warped and twisted elf both a convincing and compelling character.
I am no god.
Then he left the show between seasons, leaving the showrunners searching for a replacement. In December of 2022, news broke that they had recast the orc leader for Season 2, bringing Sam Hazeldine from Peaky Blinders in to fill Mawle's sizable shoes. The teaser gives us our first glimpse of what Hazeldine will look like in the role. We get a quick but clear close-up of Adar's gnarled face, and at least in this fleeting context, the resemblance is striking. It remains to be seen whether Hazeldine's performance will line up as well, but the early visuals are encouraging. Toward the end of the trailer, we get another blink-and-you'll-miss-it shot of the stranger in what is presumably the desert landscape of the East. He's holding a staff and even plants it on the ground, creating a burst of outward flowing energy. Shortly after, there's another scene that seems to depict a sandstorm. Whether the two events are connected is unclear. One thing that is clear, though, is that this is another moment that is heavily reminiscent of Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. The wizard slams his staff down in similar fashion when destroying the bridge of Khazad Dûm. It looks like we're going to get a solid dose of the stranger flexing his new wizarding powers in Season 2. The lingering question remains, though, is the show deliberately mimicking Gandalf as a general way to make the stranger feel wizardy? Or are they hinting that he is indeed a young Gandalf? At one point in the teaser, we see Celebrimbor leaning over his forge fire, dumping a handful of ornate rings into the flames. His hands look beaten up, and the scene indicates that he is trying to destroy the pieces of jewelry. At first glance, this feels counterintuitive to a show that still needs to, create the rings of power that the One Ring will eventually control. But there are possible explanations for this seemingly inexplicable act. One is that Celebrimbor could be destroying other magical rings. In the Fellowship of the Ring book, Gandalf tells Frodo that during the Second Age, the elves of Eregion made many rings. They were, of course, of various kinds, some more potent and some less. He adds that all of them were dangerous, but it was the 20 Great Rings that were the most perilous. This indicates that there are indeed other magical rings of power besides the main ones we know about. Perhaps the clip depicts Celebrimbor disposing of the lesser rings before Sauron can get them. In Unfinished Tales, Tolkien does add the curious line that when the elves discovered Sauron had betrayed them, they should have destroyed all the rings of power at this time, but they failed to find the strength. With that in mind, maybe we're witnessing a brief glimpse of Celebrimbor destroying the lesser rings before he fails to find the strength to melt down the great ones.